Stand behind the line, sir.
How do I look?
Like a winner.
Ready?
Ready?
Huh?
Congratulations, Mr. Star! You're the 1,000,000th person to pass the test!
Does that mean I get a free keychain?
No.
Oh.
You get a brand new boatmobile! The new Bass Blaster 3000, the ultimate boating machine.
Right!
Women will want you.
Oh.
Men will want to be you. You'll be the envy of your friends.
Isn't this great? I got my license and a new boat.
I'm so happy for you.
The horn works.
Cue the intro! Ahoy, mateys, and welcome aboard to the only podcast that believes in Billy West's ability to bring you to tears while you're driving. I'm ready, a SpongeBob Squarecast. My name is Captain Eric, and it's a pleasure to welcome you aboard as we continue our sail through the 4th season of SpongeBob SquarePants. Woo! Yeah, baby! Another week, another episode. Legitimately, Billy West on 2 occasions has made me pull over my car due to bringing me to tears. Out of tears of joy, not out of sadness. But I can only recommend to the highest degree, if you enjoy any of the voice acting stylings of Billy West or John DiMaggio, to check out their episodes on the Nerdist podcast. And then I cannot recommend enough Billy West's appearance on Penn Jillette's podcast, Penn's Sunday School. It is one of my favorite single-episode podcasts of all time. I've mentioned it before, but when I instantly hear Driven to Tears, the first thing I think of is Billy West. He's done it to me on many occasions. So, other than that, before we get into today's episode, I have a bit of an anecdote to bring to your table. And for any of you out there celebrating 420, as I am recording and releasing this episode on said holiday, if you are celebrating, certainly get yourselves ready for a bit of a story here. There was quite a day for the captain on this past Tuesday as I woke up at around 9 a.m., which is a little bit later. I slept in, and our dog will usually growl or bark for any other animals passing in front of the house, which for him, it's not out of aggression. That's just how he speaks. This dog here is one of the most submissive big dogs you'll see. He loves animals so small as Jake the rabbit here in our home, and he loves animals as big as what ended up being on my front lawn. As I woke up, didn't even put my glasses on, there was just this white blur from outside of the window. And I won't go into full detail over the entire day of events. I have a vlog I'm working on with all of the videos and all of the pictures I took. But there was a sheep on my front lawn. And once I made any sort of contact with this sheep, it was actually in the middle of the road right in front of the lawn. But as soon as I went outside, it came up on the front lawn. I started talking to it, and it walked over and stayed in the front of the house at the front door for about an hour, grunting every few seconds. And this is one of the first times I'll plug my TikTok, which I don't post regularly on. Not that I can't, but certainly with trying to unpack and unload a lot of things in my life, it's just another plate I'm going to be spinning on very soon. But at SpongeBob Podcast on Twitter, I have a video of this sheep at my front door, and the grunt and growl it was bellowing to me every few minutes or so. And at a point, I had to end up going to work. I wanted to try to get this sheep into the backyard, tried luring it, and it didn't want to go. But at some point while I was getting ready for work, this sheep ended up making its way to the back of our house. and to the back gate. I swear, didn't lead this thing whatsoever. And after an encounter with our dog, luckily with the fence in between them, I was able to get the sheep into the back of our home, our gated backyard, and animal control showed up. They have the means of taking the sheep, but they just really didn't know where to put it, so I offered my backyard as a habitat for this sheep to stay in. And long story short, it was in my backyard for about 12 hours. I ended up hanging out with Puffle the sheep, her being a female with an udder. I think she recently had been a mom, but she had escaped from some enclosure and made her way all the way to my home and hung out in our backyard with the full intent of coming into the house. I can't make this clear enough that most of the photos I have with this sheep are of them trying to, once they see a door to our home, it was just like intent of going into it. I don't know what it was, but even with the blinds closed and put in front of the door for the entire day, it was really in the backyard other than a few times to get some grass. It was pretty much wanting to go into the house. Long story short, up to this point, there'll be more in the vlog. It did make its way back to its original owner up to this point, and I've met the owner. He seems like a very kind gentleman, so I hope that Puffle goes and lives a wonderful life. I wish I had the means to hold on to this animal. I'm not very spiritual, but I genuinely feel connections can sometimes happen with people and with animals. I fully believe in that whole idea that sometimes an animal can adopt its owner before the other way. So if I had the means, it's more monetary than anything else. I truly believe with the space we have on our lawn, with the correct fencing, this would be a wonderful home for his sheep. But we certainly do not have the means to do that. But it's a wonderful story nonetheless. And this morning, in fact, Captain Eric was interviewed for Mass Live by one of their authors over there, Tristan. And so I will be posting that once it goes live, and you can hear more about the story of Puffle the sheep and her adventure with Captain Eric. So thank you for indulging me there. We are about 7 minutes in, and you know what that means. Time to drive you to tears with another episode of I'm Ready, a SpongePod Squarecast. This episode of SpongeBob is the first half of the 77th episode of SpongeBob, and it first premiered in Ireland and in the United Kingdom on November 22nd, 2006, before being released on DVD in the US, which in fact was the second volume of Season 4. This was the first season where there wasn't a solid fourth season DVD release. They were following the trend that was happening with a lot of current television shows trying to keep up with DVDs on the market. They were releasing the seasons in two halves. So up to this point, season 1, 2, and 3, beautiful. But then we have season 4, volume 1. And then a few weeks before even a few of the episodes premiered on television, season 4, volume 2. They were so quick to get these out that they were even beating the time that they were going to air on television. This didn't air in the United States until February 19th, 2007, before a Canadian air date of April 25th, 2007. I only mention that due to the fact that we're 4 days away from that anniversary. So there we are, our neighbors to the north, getting that near 420. I think SpongeBob fits in that category of cartoons that fit the bill of what you would want in a viewing experience on a day like today. This episode was storyboard directed by Luke Brookshire and Tom King, who wrote this episode alongside Stephen Banks. Our animation director is Andrew Overtomb, our technical director is Vincent Waller, and our supervising producer is Paul Tibbett. Very recently, somebody found an older episode of the podcast. For some reason, a few of these older episodes have gotten caught up in some viral waves of possibly being recommended to others. And if you look at some of the season 1 episodes of the podcast, specifically on YouTube, a few of them have suspiciously high view counts compared to the rest of the series. And those are some of the episodes that for some reason have just been caught up in some wave of being tossed around. And I can only imagine that most people selecting that episode probably feel like it's the SpongeBob episode. And I'm going to go back through and re-update a lot of the original seasons to make it a bit more clear that it's a podcast. But somebody left a comment mentioning, essentially, hey, this podcast is a waste of time. Not necessarily saying that, but why not just watch the episode? And I've never hidden the fact that no matter what episode we're talking about, you should always rewatch it. You should always either watch it for your first time, a first viewing experience, or you should rewatch it. At the end of the day, if there's even just one person listening along to Captain Eric's stories and following along to the tale of SpongeBob SquarePants, then that makes my day, because this podcast is an exercise for me. I like the idea of committing to a weekly podcast and not giving up on producing a podcast in many different ways that come along with the production that keep me creatively engaged. The audio production, the editing, making any of the bits for YouTube, the pictures, the logos, I enjoy all of that. So it's an exercise for me, and at the end of the day, any artist is going to have to or should enjoy what they're doing first before, ever even really caring what anyone else cares about their art. You have to care about your art first. So this is, in and of itself, will always be something I'm just grinding at, moving on, moving forward towards. So if you ever catch those original episodes or get caught up, that was somebody very early on. I think that was episode 35, which ironically is Rock Bottom, which is where SpongeBob must feel throughout this entire episode we have in front of us today. But I bring this up, this whole idea of rewatching, because this episode in particular, I'm going to push that up to this point in season 4, I think this deserves a rewatch from everybody. This may be one of the underrated gems of season 4, Driven to Tears. I enjoyed it so much today, and there were so many feelings of this episode that we'll get into that brought me back to how I felt or how I feel watching SpongeBob in its first season. There are just creative details, I think, in the design of characters, the overall structure of the episode. It feels, and we will break this down if you are not along with this. If you're like, whoa, Captain, what are you talking about? This could have been a really fantastic series finale for SpongeBob SquarePants. I know that there's a lacking of certain characters, but a series finale doesn't have to be a big shebang. In a way, I kind of like the idea of certain cartoons ending in a way that may have a wink in the nod that it's the end, but could still be viewed on its own in that idea that cartoons just live on forever. It could just go back to episode 1 and replay all over again. You don't have to have this big, monumental, regular show level ending. But this episode reminded me so much of Help Wanted, had such a weird mirrored dichotomy to it, and some of the feelings that even the characters were giving off. There was a lot of feelings of season 1 here, so whoever wrote it, I know who did, Tom King, Luke Brookshire, Stephen Banks, they nailed this episode in my opinion. As the episode starts, we are greeted with yet another creative title card of Driven to Tears. You see skid marks all across your screen, and no, you goofballs, not the kind of skid marks you're thinking about. Save that for Patrick Star later on. But we have a great title card, and as we start out, SpongeBob is once again on his way to get his driver's license. A situation that we have seen play out over and over and over again throughout the show's history. It's one of the pinnacles of the show, and also one of the core rules from the man himself, Steven Hillenburg, essentially God for SpongeBob. Mr. Hillenburg, one of these rules, as far as I know, is that SpongeBob SquarePants should never get his driver's license. It is something he should always achieve for, but never truly achieve. And it's not necessarily the point is you have to meet failure, but I think in a way it is to teach that when you fail at something, you just get back up and you keep going at it. And even if SpongeBob fails at this driver's test 1,000,000 times and gets back up 1,000,001 times, that's still inspirational to somebody watching and seeing this character go through it. It's something I think we take for granted in these cartoons, that I know that there is those out there who appreciate animation who catch on to these, but outside of that core group who really love animation, I think it's these little life lessons that we take for granted that are sprinkled throughout these cartoons that once you achieve a certain age are perceived as just capitalistic machines. Oh, that show is only there to make merchandise and sell toys. And certainly there are those outside of a bubble, outside of the tree dome, that can have that effect, that can have that opinion, that can have that desire. But that still doesn't mean the care of everything going on inside of that tree dome isn't creative minds working towards a piece of art that they genuinely care about. And there's things like this of SpongeBob always meeting failure and continually getting up and getting up and getting up. It's one of these modern Aesop tales that I really think we overlook. And not just that this isn't a simple story that any cartoon can tell. This is SpongeBob SquarePants, a very universally known character, being shown, telling the world, showing failure for such a positive character. But nothing, I don't think we've ever seen such a positive character get so rattled with jealousy, rightfully so in some degree, but I don't think we've ever seen SpongeBob with this kind of jealousy and rattled in this kind of way. And this tale begins in such a help wanted type way where SpongeBob is excited, heading towards a goal that he has in mind. Help wanted was getting that fry cook job. And when he doubted himself, who was there to pep him up but his best friend Patrick Star, who once SpongeBob starts doubting himself, this is the 58th time he is going for his boating exam, which thankfully I only failed the written test twice before I was able to achieve that. The driving test I never failed. I passed that with flying colors. But for some reason, all of the information I was taking in about driving, the second I was put in front of this touchscreen machine and being told, it wasn't even that the idea of a percentage failing or whatnot. It was if you fail 3 questions, you're done. And for some reason, having that sword of Damocles above my head just messed with it twice. And both times I had to have my mother the first time, walk me in, pay the $30 to $50 for the exam, have me go in, fail, walk of shame right back out to my parent. I failed. Sorry about that. All right, well, your father is going to come back with you and pay the next time. Next week or so, go in with my dad, fail again. And it was just really dumb, curveball, screwy questions with multiple answers that were so close, I can't even tell you what I failed at. But That second time really hurt. The first time, I didn't really know what experience I went into, but that second time I really should have been more prepared. But I failed, and my dad was like, all right, you got one more try. Now here's another 3 strikes and you're out. And then any future exams are coming out of your pocket. But that third exam, I passed with flying colors. 80? What is it, 87? No, that's crazy. I mean, it'll eventually get there, but 57 times taking the test. That is a lot, and especially he's paying for these exams. This isn't like a free school as far as I know. There hasn't been a confirmation of SpongeBob paying, but it's a boating school. Driving school you have to pay for. I don't necessarily think it's free. Maybe it is in some places. That is a possibility, but that's absolutely crazy. Patrick apparently was the one in charge of holding on to SpongeBob's flashcards for studying. I don't know why SpongeBob would trust Patrick with holding on to flashcards, something so disposable, but then for some reason Patrick eats the flashcards. There is a moment here I'd like to say when he's holding the flashcards and he's pepping up SpongeBob. I think it's the fact that his eyelids are a little bit closed, but he gave off such season 1 vibes for Patrick. It was beautiful. I loved it. I had to pause the episode and look at it and appreciate that some artist was able to use a modern Patrick design, but for some, I don't know if it was the way he was standing, everything about it I loved. Go back and rewatch it and let me know. Patrick ends up eating the flashcards. Somehow, either he was reading the flashcards while they were in his possession, or there is some validity to Patrick's Kirby-esque abilities. They're both pink, but eating something and then gaining the abilities of what you ate. Patrick even says learning is delicious, or mentions something about learning in the same vein as eating. So Patrick was able to get some sort of intelligence with driving a boatmobile, either from ingesting these flashcards or from reading them and just reading them over and over and over again, not really knowing how to apply it, but just knowing the information. SpongeBob fails his test for the 58th time, which was supposed to be somehow the magic number for Patrick. My magic number is 37 for some reasons, which, by the way, I mean, speaking of the day, 420 would normally be a day to celebrate Kevin Smith, but after 15 years, Kevin Smith is now a sober man. Congratulations to Kevin, but still, what a day to bring up 37 and bring up Kevin Smith. It all ties together. But 1 minute and 37 seconds is exactly the amount of time, according to the title card that popped up, the amount of time that it took SpongeBob to go into the boating exam and fail it. Patrick, though, after pepping up SpongeBob so much, this is the dichotomy of Help Wanted. Patrick pepped up SpongeBob to give him the oomph, to give him the confidence to go into that restaurant and take that fry cook job. And here's Patrick giving SpongeBob the confidence of yelling, "I'm a winner," to go into that boating school and you know, achieve your license. Pass it with flying colors. I know you have all the intelligence. No one else has taken this test like you the amount of times you have. You can do it.
You can do it!
Yet, due to the rules of Mr. Hillenburg, SpongeBob is supposed to become a fry cook, but never achieve his driver's license. That's the payoff. And even with all of Patrick's pump that he was giving him, all of that extra goodwill meant nothing. And this does not sit well with Patrick. He assumes the test is a cheat. It has to be. How is it that you keep failing this test? Either it's incredibly hard or they're cheating. And of course, there isn't any rules from Mr. Hillenburg about Patrick achieving what is unachievable for SpongeBob. And in mere moments, Patrick has not only passed Mrs. Puff's boating exam, but has aced it, has perfected whatever obstacle. Mrs. Puff has had so many different courses. We have no idea what it looks like in there right now, but with whatever she had, Patrick apparently knocked it out of the park. I absolutely love the interaction they have here with Patrick angrily getting into the boat, and once Mrs. Puff even utters a word, Patrick just screams, "What are you, the judge of me?" And I don't remember if he throws up his fist in anger, but either way, just his anger towards Mrs. Puff, certainly one of the highlights of this episode. Patrick just, when he has that determination, is always so endearing. But of course, he passes with flying colors. And not only that, not only rubbing that egg in SpongeBob's face of failing for the 58th time, but then on top of that, of all individuals in town, not downplaying his strengths, but we didn't really ever think that driving a boat would be one of them. Patrick Star being able to do what you couldn't. On top of that, Patrick then, upon taking his photo for his license, receives the information that he is the 1 millionth driver to pass the test. And since he's the 1 millionth driver, he is now the proud owner of a brand new boatmobile, the Bass Blaster 3000. Yeah, Patrick! Woo! And this is just gotta be the worst for SpongeBob. This is the worst case scenario. It's not that his friend is achieving what he's unable to. It's just, in general, somebody he knows is achieving something so easily, but then also being rewarded beyond a belief of all of this accolades of perfect scores and millionth driver. Here's a brand new boatmobile, Bass Blaster 3000, one of the best boatmobiles on the market, and we are sponsored today by Bass Blaster 3000. Yeah, that's not a real car. I'm not sponsored by him at all. I wish I was. Call me. You can email me at spongepodpodcast@gmail.com. The Bass Blaster brand is okay with me. Try saying that 3 times fast. Jeez. But, you know, there is an envy here. There's a movie called Envy starring Jack Black and Ben Stiller. It's a goofy movie. But at the end of the day, it really shows from the point of view of someone who can be proud of the accolades and the success of their friends, but also show what it's like to live in that shadow, and where sometimes that jealousy and that envy can grow and fester inside of you. Jack Black also having an incredible year, being worth more than whatever they paid for him for the Super Mario Brothers movie. I have to say, whatever they paid for his services was not enough, because as you can tell, he goes above and beyond for his craft. But yeah, Envy was a movie I couldn't get out of my mind when watching this episode, because you can feel for SpongeBob. The laws of his world are blocking him from achieving something, and not that it's told. It's not like a young kid is going to know that SpongeBob isn't supposed to ever really achieve his driver's license, but it is the laws of this world that are going to keep him from this. And because of this, then, out of all of the characters, you would least imagine being able to achieve, the millionth driver thing is happenstance. That's, throw that out the window. But the fact that Patrick achieved a perfect score for this driving exam, where, of course, every other character we have seen go through Mrs. Puff's boating school seemingly passes, so it shouldn't be that crazy. But none of the main characters, even when we've seen them drive, it's never been positioned in such a way where they are a quote-unquote perfect driver. But yet Patrick Star is here with a perfect record and now a new boatmobile to boot. So SpongeBob is feeling extra crummy. And it doesn't help when your friend then wants to just drive around his house. There's this bit, once they get outside of any sort of driving exams and picture taking and whatnot. They're on their way home. We just see the perspective of SpongeBob and Patrick driving in the boat, and just that they are driving. We don't really get to see where they are driving at, and this is one of the bits of this episode that made me laugh. I forgot about it, forgot about this joke happening, and then when it did happen, absolutely loved it. Can we stop driving around your house? And once the camera pulls out, we're able to see that it is simply Patrick pulling loops, driving around his rock, and then decides to just drive SpongeBob to the pineapple because driving is faster than walking. And, I mean, that's fact.
Now I'd rather drive to the end of the block than walk.
One of the moments of this episode, which has to have been pulled from a real-life experience, or just generally knowing someone out there who lives next to somebody who has an extremely nice car, for those consistently working on their car at, let's just say, the most inappropriate times of the day. Now, I'm sure there are those out there who work on their vehicles, listen to music, and it's midday and their neighbors are complaining, and it's silly. But I'm sure there are those of you out there living near or next to somebody who works on their car or has music blasting at really inappropriate hours of the night. Not even saying the day. Here we have Patrick at 3 a.m. just tinkering with his car. And for the fact that we don't see Squidward throughout this entire episode, this is a Squidwardless episode, he must have taken the ultimate backseat in any of this dealings going on with this car, fully knowing that this was SpongeBob's episode of really going through the emotional ringer, if you will. Squidward has to be the butt of so many experiences, and very rarely does SpongeBob ever have to be put through something like this. It doesn't happen that often. And for Squidward to be in the smack dab middle of all of this noise and this loud car being worked on, you would think that he would want to butt in and be a little upset too. But he must have seen SpongeBob and the effect that this has had on him. Wait, Patrick has his license? SpongeBob doesn't? Oh boy! He must be sound asleep right now with earmuffs on or some sort of headphones, drowning the sound of Patrick. Or even if it's not, knowing that it's keeping SpongeBob up and jealous, maybe he's sound asleep because of that. I found it interesting that Squidward was not present in situations that you would think he would be. But he was nowhere to be found. Simply enjoying himself for this episode. If you dislike any of the Squidward torture episodes, this is an episode you can add into your watch list of a Squidward support day or a plus Squidward day. Squidward Plus is a new streaming service that only features the episodes of SpongeBob where Squidward either wins or SpongeBob has to go through something like this. But anyway, I noticed just the lack of Squidward was really noticeable. The next morning, even after a rough night of not sleeping, SpongeBob is awoken very loudly and clearly not getting enough sleep, going through it, being picked up by Patrick, now dressing as kind of an Evel Knievel type, very fashion-conscious supercar driver. Somebody, probably brings their nice car over to Italian speedways and they wear the white gloves, and Patrick is really dressing the part. A little bit like Speed Racer in a way, and I kind of wish they dressed Patrick in the outfit of Speed Racer, a blue shirt, the red ascot, the yellow gloves, the white helmet. That would have been really cool to have seen, but either way, the idea that Patrick then has to go out and add on an extra outfit to how his driving is. He's a perfect driver. He now has to dress the part. Being driven to work isn't the worst thing, instead of walking or running. But when your friend is constantly pushing his abilities in your face and the fact that he has this nice car, it's not the best drive to have. And I, fortunately, out of my friends, was one of the first ones to get his license. And I was in a position where my grandfather was moving in with us, and right at that time, achieving my license, and he was unable to drive his vehicle from his previous home up in New Hampshire, Vermont, around that area. So during my birthday of that year, he had gifted me his car, signed it over to me. So out of the gate, right as I had my license, I had a vehicle that I cherished day after day, a 1997 Oldsmobile LSS, absolute dream car, a boat on the road. That's really where the Captain Eric moniker started in any way, was due to that car. And after a friend had mentioned how it drove like a boat on the water on high speedways when we were on the highway and whatnot, Captain Eric was brought up in some way of that time. So that always stuck with me, and I always loved that car. But I never wanted to push it in the face of my friends that I got my license first and I was driving on the road first. It really wasn't too much longer before everybody else was able to drive to school, but for a short time there, I was the savior to the masses. Once I was able to drive anybody in my car, we were going anywhere and everywhere. I was the chauffeur for all of these guys, and I couldn't have been happier. It was one of the best times of my life, that little moment where I was at the behest. Not that I wanted to be a taxi driver or drive Miss Daisy, but I enjoyed the ability to be able to be free with my friends and go off and do things that normally would have been unreal. And now the possibilities are endless. Well, as long as we have money for the gas to put into the car, then the possibilities are endless. But money isn't endless, so certainly pump the brakes on those ideas. I can certainly empathize with SpongeBob. I may have not have been in a situation to be envious of somebody else and their driving or achieving that. But without the driving test aside, I can still understand and empathize of wanting something, trying hard towards something, a goal, something you are working every bit of your body into, and then consistently receiving failure, and then watching somebody that is close to you achieve it so effortlessly that it's like it makes you feel dumb inside. Makes you feel like a failure. Doesn't have to be a driving test. It can be something simply in school where you are just unable to achieve some sort of project, something is happening, and then a friend of yours gets it done within an hour, within a night, and they're over and done with it, and you're struggling with it. Then you have to receive that F and they get an A. Something as simple like that is the exact thread of emotion, is what SpongeBob is going through here, but on a completely different level, because every win is coming across Patrick's path of life right now. And although Patrick might perceive himself as a loser sometimes, I would say he has a pretty good life and a lot of positives that he can look around and be proud of. But Patrick isn't also someone who is used to life really gifting him these opportunities. And it's not really just passing the test. Certainly giving him a boatmobile is something that, on top of missing out on, your license in general, your friend getting an entire boatmobile on top of that certainly is not one you'd want to deal with. But as SpongeBob arrives to work, there's a new part of the Krusty Krab that has been installed that I would have thought would have been a part of the Krusty Krab from the beginning, since you look at that parking lot and you'd think with the roundabout right around the Krusty Krab, that's perfect for a drive-through. But alas, we have not had a drive-through installed in the Krusty Krab until today. And of course, right as the drive-through is installed, SpongeBob not wanting to have to deal with Patrick's driving or even seeing Patrick in his Bass Blaster 3000. There's already somebody at the drive-thru, and who do you think it is? Of course, Patrick Star. So not even Squidward has to deal with the drive-thru service. SpongeBob gets thrown right into the window and has to deal with Patrick showing up. And this is another W for Patrick. Think about this for a second. He not only achieves his license with a perfect score, he's the millionth driver to pass the test in general, gets gifted the Bass Blaster 3000, not playing the La Cucaracha again. But then, right after this, the Krusty Krab, his favorite restaurant, installs a drive-thru. I wonder if Mr. Krabs only had the drive-thru installed after hearing about Patrick achieving his license and driving around town. Oh, well, this will be easier for him to drive up, eat a Krabby Patty, drive up, order a Krabby Patty, drive away, eat the Krabby Patty, drive up, order the Krabby Patty, drive away, eat the Krabby Patty, pull up, order the Krabby Patty, drive away, eat the Krabby Patty, and so on and so forth. All right. That's a lot of La Cucaracha. That, of course, is the horn that Patrick has installed in this Bass Blaster 3000, and SpongeBob can't escape it. Now, even at work, he has to deal with Patrick's car, in the same way that Mr. Krabs apparently had to deal with his kidney stone passing, which, by the way, for those that have no idea of passing a kidney stone through a certain part of the body, it's not a fun time. I don't know from experience. Let me pray for a moment, knock on wood, the right wood. My cousin, though, on the other hand, had to deal with a kidney stone, and I have seen in person the effects it can have on a man and what they will make them shrivel and cry to. Sorry, Dave, had to mention it, but yeah, at least I respect what those who have had to pass kidney stones have had to go through. Yeah, I respect it. Not going to knock it at all, but Mr. Krabs, oh boy, I hope you are okay. Upon picking up SpongeBob from work, one of my favorite moments of this episode is driving up to SpongeBob's parents to not only just, hey, Mom and Dad, gonna pick him up, and they're not his parents at all, and I even accidentally wrote picking up Patrick's parents in my notes after he had said that. But this entire scene as Patrick drives away, the whole point of this scene plays out with SpongeBob's parents. Even Patrick was able to get his license, which is just adding an extra layer to this already stupendous, jealous sandwich that SpongeBob is brewing on having to gloat to his own parents that even Patrick Star is able to achieve the unachievable. Think about that. What was really nice, though, before we even get to the parents, there's a piece of art in this episode that had my eyes glued to it. And I wanted to bring this up. When Patrick and SpongeBob are driving away from the Krusty Krab, there is a head-on shot of them in the boatmobile, and the art used for the sky above them, which is scrolling to give the illusion of movement for them driving, was so textured and beautiful that I couldn't actually pay attention to what the characters were saying. I had to rewind that part of the episode, and rewatch it again because of the art in that moment. I absolutely loved the look of the sky when they were driving in that moment in time.
Oh my, this is beautiful.
There are so many things to like and love about SpongeBob SquarePants, but for every thing that I can point to that I absolutely love about the character, there is also parts about the character that we can point to that are not as awesome, not as squeaky clean, or in this case, a little too squeaky clean. In the case that while Patrick is driving, SpongeBob notices that the speed limit is currently 40 miles per hour, and that Patrick, although we see some terrible driving coming up for as perfect as he is, quote unquote, is driving about 40.5 miles per hour. And SpongeBob has an issue with this. Patrick, you are speeding. Now, most driving instructors will tell you, hey, look, when it comes to the speed limit, and this is not advice for you to take, this is just something that was told to me, Captain Eric, when I was taking my driver's test when it came to the speed limit signs, is look, if a cop has his speedometer out and it's 45 miles per hour and you drive by at 46 or 47, and I believe even my instructor said within the first 5 miles per hour after that speed limit, they usually won't really hassle you. But when you're at that 10, that solid 10, that is absolutely the danger zone. Now, that was advice from my driving instructor. I'm not a driving instructor, so I really can't give you advice. But I feel confident that 0.5 miles above the speed limit, I think if you were to ask 99% of police officers out there who actually go out with their radar guns, 0.5 miles above the speed limit may not be where they choose to pull somebody over to give them a ticket. You know? Now, for the 0.1% or 1% of the officers that would, most likely they would say, hey, any excuse to pull somebody over, no excuse to go over the speed limit, we got to go by the book every single time, and I'm sure you could possibly find something they're doing that's not exactly by the book, but generally, for SpongeBob's concern here, I don't think Patrick would get pulled over. What he absolutely should get pulled over for is the reckless driving that he ends up going on into Bikini Bottom with. Before then, Patrick ends up slowing down his vehicle near a police officer, and SpongeBob does the unthinkable. This is the negative part of his personality. It's not even just freaking out over the slight allure of breaking the law, of going 0.5 miles over the speed limit. It's then ratting on your friend who is at a complete stop to a police officer. My friend was speeding. Even the police officer has to point out that SpongeBob is a tattletale. Which, look, if you legitimately see something that is harming somebody else, and there is a legitimate danger to be had, you should absolutely let somebody know of its existence. And who cares if somebody calls you a tattletale? If somebody is in danger, then they're in danger. But, I don't know, in this kind of way, if you were to tattle on your friend for going a mile over the speed limit, if you saw them driving at 46 miles and the speed limit was 45, that's a little excessive. I would say, I don't know if the friendship is worth it at that moment in time, because what are you doing? You're trying to throw legitimate life-altering speed bumps of the law in my way because of 1 mile over the speed limit? Okay. How about you actually pass your test first before passing judgment? Now, after leaving the police officer, Patrick heads on through Bikini Bottom and starts running through red lights left and right, which is not ideal, is not something that I can really stand by, because in that kind of mentality, no matter how good of a driver you are, you could legitimately be the greatest driver to ever live. But if you are still going to put the lives of others at danger just so you don't have to slow down, it doesn't matter at that point of what you're capable of other than hurting others. And then you're just scum. You're scum. Your skills mean nothing. And Patrick here, for the first time up to this point, I didn't really notice anything bad with his driving, but just blatantly blowing through red light, red light, red light. And just driving through the town when SpongeBob rips into him a little bit over his driving, Patrick just nonchalantly throws it away. I'm a good driver. And that kind of mentality is what pushes people to drive the way that they do. I unfortunately have seen people in traffic on the highway put their lives and the lives of every other person at danger just to go 10 miles quicker of the speed limit. Everybody's traveling at 65. Could we go a little faster? Would I want them to go a little faster? Sure. But then you have some guy dipping and diving in through traffic just to, I understand that you could have some place you need to get to quickly. Oh my God, there could be an emergency. There's methods of dealing with an emergency. Putting other people's lives at danger should not be a part of that. And Patrick here has absolutely no excuse of even driving like that for an emergency. He's just driving through Bikini Bottom. SpongeBob now believes that Patrick does not deserve his license and decides to rip it up, throw it into pieces out in the air, which is, of course, when the police want to step in. Hey, when somebody is going through town, blasting through all the red lights, not a cop in sight, but right when some littering is going on, that's when the action takes place. I feel like I've seen that in my own life. So many moments where you wish a cop was there, just in the sake where somebody is just over excessively driving dangerously. I'm not the police patrol of the highways, but when someone is just where it's just wacky, or people racing each other on public roads, it's nuts. And then there's not a cop around, but then you see somebody throw a wrapper out of their car, and then there's like 3 police cruisers right on them. I feel like I've seen it at least once in my life of a situation where the wrong person blatantly got pulled over. But SpongeBob rips up the license, throws it out the boat. Cop notices it. Now we have a high-speed chase of Patrick, and this comedically is really funny. Now that he doesn't have a license, he now doesn't know how to drive. So essentially, he was only able to have the skills of a driver because of believing he was a driver, because of that, that license. But he passed the test. We didn't necessarily see him pass a test, but maybe, just maybe, Mrs. Puff, due to the quickness of how Patrick was able to achieve this perfect score, maybe as an extra dig into SpongeBob, or the second she even saw Patrick roll up, Mr. Big Fat Meanie himself, she was like, whoa, not dealing with you. Here's your passing test. Get out of here. It'll just rub dirt into SpongeBob's face. I feel like Mrs. Puff would want to be that mean to SpongeBob. She does have a mean bone in there over the amount of years and time she's had to deal with this kid and the amount of accidents he's caused and the damage and whatnot. Understandable to an extent. But now that the license is gone, all of a sudden all of those skills that Patrick had are just out the window, and they completely careen off of a cliff, just like Thelma and Louise, landing themselves directly into the jail. Landing the boat right into the jail yard with the police not too far behind them. We have a bit of a court hearing where it looks like the driver himself, Patrick Star, is going to be sentenced for the littering and is not going to be sentenced for the dangerous driving that occurred not only within the town of Bikini Bottom, but he ran away from cops. He eluded police in a police chase, so Patrick should have to serve some sort of time in this regard, but it looks like the littering is the only thing they were worried about, and SpongeBob, being a good soul, at the end of the day sticks up for his friend, takes the hit, takes the blame for the littering, and Patrick is saved from 90 days in prison. SpongeBob served one debt to society later. My absolute favorite time spent title card possibly in the show's history. And following his 3-month stint in the big house, SpongeBob is then reunited with Patrick in just a little heartfelt moment where Patrick reveals that due to his boatmobile landing on the E, which must mean end, he just threw the boat away. It's over. There's no more boat before SpongeBob and Patrick just frolic back into the distance. Now, this in a connection with Help Wanted, in where SpongeBob getting pepped up by Patrick and achieving something, having to go through some hoops to achieve it, but ultimately achieving and showing off what he's capable of by the end, and then being able to serve Patrick in a different kind of way. I know that this isn't the exact same, but I love the idea of, in a similar way, SpongeBob going to achieve something, Patrick pepping him up, SpongeBob not being able to achieve that, Patrick being able to do it, but in the end, throwing all of that away, because what really matters, boat, license, boating school, jail, throw all of that away. It's about SpongeBob and Patrick, and it comes back to these two. Certainly, if it was a series finale, I would structure it differently to match up with Help Wanted a little bit more, but in general, I loved this idea of going back to an idea of SpongeBob waking up, going to achieve something, and Patrick achieving it instead. Throwing that subversion in there, and then going on this legitimate ride of what happens when Patrick's star achieves SpongeBob's unachievable. I enjoyed Driven to Tears, and after the week I've had, I'm saying from even last Wednesday, it has been nonstop. I am not driven to tears yet because of moments with Puffle the Sheep on Tuesday, with episodes like Driven to Tears today, with seeing the Super Mario Brothers movie for another time. We were gifted some tickets from Cinemark, so wanted to thank Cinemark for that experience. The Super Mario Brothers movie was an incredible experience for someone who has grown up with that character in those games. And for that, I can say, if you are a fan of those, certainly see it. If you are not a fan of Super Mario or any of those games, I can't really recommend it to the highest degree, but I still think visually it is like cotton candy. It is just overwhelmingly beautiful. And after the week I've had with that, Mission Hill, since last week's episode, it has just been nonstop in my world, and I'm going to continue to move forward. I thank you for being alongside this ride with me, and thank you for coming aboard to another episode. I appreciate your time so much. And if you would like to be a part of the show, if you would like to write in any questions, comments, or anything you'd like to see Captain Eric do for the show, you can email me at spongepodpodcast@gmail.com or nickelodeonhistory@gmail.com. Those are my only two email sources. You can also follow me on social media at I'm Ready Podcast on Twitter and at SpongeBob Podcast on Instagram, but also at SpongeBob Podcast on TikTok, where there will be more Captain Eric videos to be uploaded soon, and will be uploaded through YouTube as well. Don't think I am going to forget about YouTube, because that is the #1 place for any and everything Captain Eric. If you would like to support the Captain, amongst the ways you can do so, and the best way you can do so, is by subscribing to the Captain Eric YouTube channel. Clicking that subscribe button, and regardless on whether or not you want to click that notification bell, clicking that subscribe button is by all means the best way to show your support. I absolutely love seeing the members of the Ready crew continually grow, and we are almost to the magical number of 500. I can't wait to look back on the day we hit 500 and see when that is, and to be able to appreciate that moment. I love each and every one of you. Thank you. If you would like to support the Captain further than subscribing, you can click on that Redbubble link in the podcast description below, where you can find a bunch of different pieces of art and logos that are all designed right from Captain Eric, where you can put them on a multitude of different products. T-shirts, hats, stickers, anything that you desire, because anything that comes in from my projects go directly back into my projects, and it is always appreciated. I cannot express my admiration for each and every one of you enough. You make all of this worth it, and as I said, even if there is one of you out there on the Ready crew then I am a happy captain. Thank you for coming aboard, and thank you for being here with me. I hope that the proverbial sheep in your life lands on your front lawn, and I hope things go well. Thank you for coming aboard, and as always, please stay safe, be kind to one another, including any farm animals out there, and come aboard again to another episode of I'm Ready! A SpongePod Squarecast.
Patrick!
SpongeBob!
I'm glad you passed the test. I'm glad you have a license. And to prove it, I made you this. Pals forever. Let's put it on your boatmobile, buddy.
Oh, I don't have the boatmobile anymore.
What?
It stopped working, so I threw it away. The needle was on E. I figured that must mean end.
Oh.